I had just walked in from my night shift, my body aching, my eyes burning from hours of fluorescent light. The paycheck was still warm in my hand, a little piece of relief after 2 weeks of exhaustion. I slipped it into my jacket pocket, letting myself imagine for a second what it would feel like to keep it, just for me and for Liam. My 6-year-old son tugged gently at my sleeve, his small face bright with hope. "Mom, can we get pancakes tomorrow?" he asked, his voice innocent and soft. I smiled, ruffling his hair. "We'll see, baby," I murmured, but the warmth of that smile didn't last. Mom was already in the kitchen, her eyes narrowing the second she noticed me. "Where is it?" she demanded, her tone sharp and demanding, slicing through the tiny bubble of calm I had built. I blinked, pretending I didn't understand. "Where's what?" I asked cautiously. Her pan hissed with grease as she waved it, and the words came out like venom. "Don't play stupid with me. Your paycheck. You know the rules." And just like that, my chest tightened. The rules. For as long as I could remember, every dollar I earned, every hour I slaved away, had been taken from me before I could even think about what I wanted. Not for bills. Not for food. For Madison, my sister, the golden child who had never worked a day in her life. I need this one, Mom, I said, my voice shaking, though I tried to keep it steady. Just this once. Liam needs shoes. He needs milk. Before I could even finish, the skillet slammed against my back. Pain exploded in sharp, searing lines, and I stumbled forward, catching myself on the counter. "Mom!" I gasped, spinning around to face her, but her expression was twisted with fury, unflinching. "Every dollar you make is for this family. Don't forget your place," she spat. Liam cried out, running toward me, and I dropped to my knees, shielding him with my body. "It's okay, baby," I whispered, though my own voice trembled under the pain. But my sister Madison didn't even flinch at the sight. She strolled in like she owned the world, her perfectly styled hair bouncing, her silk pajamas untouched by effort. She plucked a strawberry from the counter and popped it into her mouth, smirking. "Honestly," she said, mock sympathy dripping from her words, "you should have let her hit harder. Maybe she'd learn her place." Mom's smirk widened as she gripped the skillet tighter. "Don't worry," she said, "she'll hand it over. She always does." I swallowed hard, my hand brushing against the envelope in my pocket. Madison had everything. She had everything her whole life. And now, they wanted my small relief, my little victory, snatched away, just like always. My heart pounded, my vision blurred with both pain and rage, but deep down, I realized something. They thought the paycheck was the prize. They thought the money was the power. But the real power, the real prize, was mine to claim if I ever found the courage. I live in a small suburban house with my family, my mother, Linda, my sister, Madison, and my father, Robert. From the outside, it looks like any normal household, laughter echoing down the halls, the smell of coffee in the morning. But inside, it's a battlefield disguised as home. Madison is Mom's golden girl. She has never worked a day in her life, yet she gets everything handed to her, designer clothes, the latest gadgets, constant praise. And me? I'm the invisible one. I work double shifts, my body worn down to the bone, and every dollar I earn disappears before I can even breathe on it. Mom constantly reminds me of my place, her words cutting sharper than the skillet that struck me. "Your work is for the family," she says, as if my sweat and pain don't even belong to me. Dad mostly stays quiet, retreating into his recliner, pretending not to see the tension, while Madison lounges nearby like royalty. And Liam, my sweet little boy, he notices. His wide eyes, full of trust and hope, watch me navigate this daily storm. I want to shield him from it, to give him what I never had, a sense of safety, a home where love isn't measured in control and fear. For months, maybe even years, I had learned to fold myself into the spaces where they wanted me to exist, small, quiet, compliant. Every time I came home with tired eyes and aching limbs, my paycheck vanished into Madison's hands before I could even blink. Mom's sharp words cut deeper than the skillet she once swung at me, leaving marks in places no one could see. My body healed, but my spirit was slowly being ground down to powder. And yet, every day, I went back to work, back to the night shifts, back to the fluorescent lights that burned into my eyes. I did it for Liam, my little boy who needed more than I could give at home, whose laughter was a fragile thing I had to protect from the storm of our household. I would watch Madison strut through the house, blissfully unaware of anything outside her bubble. Mom's words made it clear she existed to prop Madison up, to make sure everyone knew how perfect she was. And I existed only to work, to labor, to bend under the weight of their expectations. Dad, when he was home, would bark about how important Madison was, how I had to understand my role, yet I could see the flicker in his eyes when bills piled up. He knew, as I did, that something about this wasn't right, but he never acted. Liam would tug at my sleeve sometimes, asking for pancakes, toys, little treats I couldn't afford. And I would nod and smile, whispering lies about maybe tomorrow, while in my chest, anger and exhaustion battled silently. Every dollar I earned, every ounce of strength I gave, vanished into a void created by Mom and Madison. And still, I went on. Still, I endured, burying my pain, whispering to myself that this was all I could do to keep Liam safe. But the more I endured, the more a seed of something new began to grow inside me. It started small, almost imperceptible, a tightening in my chest, a fire I couldn't put out with obedience. I realized that no matter how careful I was, the rules of the house would never change. No matter how hard I worked, no matter how much I bent myself to their will, I would never be allowed to exist as my own person. And slowly, I began to see the cracks. The tiny fissures in their perfect facade. Madison, for all her smugness and self-importance, had moments when she was careless, leaving her phone open, bragging about the way she was handed a life I had to fight for. Mom boasted to neighbors about raising a princess, and yet her smile faltered whenever someone asked why I still lived at home, working double shifts while my sister's life was effortless. Dad's veiled sighs, the way he glanced at the bills, the way he avoided my gaze, they all spoke louder than any words. And in those cracks, I found my first taste of hope. I began quietly. A recording here, a screenshot there. Madison bragged to her friend about me being just practice, about how I existed to make her shine brighter, and I saved every word. I memorized the patterns of Mom's demands, when she was most likely to yell, when she would demand my paycheck before I could even touch it. I learned to move faster, speak carefully, and most importantly, observe. I became a shadow in my own home, silent but vigilant, collecting evidence, cataloging every injustice, every cruel remark, every physical threat. At work, I saved every detail. My double shifts were brutal, but they also gave me time to think, to plan, to breathe in the reality that I wasn't entirely powerless. I started an account in Liam's name without anyone knowing, tucking a portion of my paycheck there each month. It was small at first, almost laughably so, but it was mine, and it was for him. Every dollar I set aside was a quiet rebellion, a seed of freedom. There were nights when I'd sit in the dark, Liam asleep beside me, and I'd imagine the confrontation I would one day stage. It wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my son's security, the life we deserved. I imagined their faces, Mom's fury, Madison's smug disbelief, Dad's shocked silence. I imagined the moment when the facade would crumble, when the truth would finally be undeniable. But this was not a reckless rebellion. I had learned too well what fear felt like. I bided my time, calculated every move. Every act of defiance, even as small as keeping a single dollar, had to be precise. I practiced calm in front of Madison and Mom, hiding the storm that raged inside me. I smiled when they expected fear, laughed when they expected submission. I learned that the real power in this house wasn't in the skillet, the yelling, or the money, it was in knowledge, in patience, in control of the narrative. I even found moments of quiet satisfaction in small things. When Madison boasted online about her perfect life, I would watch her check every comment, anxious, seeking validation. When Mom bragged to neighbors about raising a princess, I noted the quick flinches when someone probed further. These cracks, tiny as they were, gave me strength. They were proof that their power was fragile, that they depended entirely on appearances and the fear they cultivated in me. And as I watched, I transformed. The rage that had once been raw and destructive became sharp and deliberate. My fear became strategic. My despair became fuel. I realized that endurance alone was not enough. I needed action, and I needed it to be flawless. Every bruise, every stolen paycheck, every word that diminished me was now cataloged and converted into leverage. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing to strike, not with blind fury, but with careful, undeniable truth. In those long, sleepless nights, I imagined the moment I would finally break free, not just for me, but for Liam. The house would never be the same. The illusion of control that Mom and Madison wielded so carelessly would crumble before the evidence I had meticulously collected. The neighbors, the family, the world, they would see the truth. And in that moment, I would no longer be the one who suffered quietly in the shadows. I would be the one holding the power, the one who decided what justice looked like, the one who determined the fate of those who had hurt me for so long. By the time I went to bed each night, cradling Liam, my heart still heavy from the day, I carried a new secret with me. It was not a secret of fear or submission, but of strategy and inevitability. They had taken so much from me, and yet, they had given me one invaluable gift: clarity. I knew who they were, what they valued, and most importantly, how fragile their empire truly was. And so I waited, quietly, patiently. I endured, observed, and prepared. Every paycheck, every interaction, every harsh word became a piece of the puzzle I was assembling. I was not broken. I was becoming deliberate, calculating, and ready. The storm was coming, and when it did, it would be the first day I reclaimed everything they had stolen from me. The day finally came, and I felt a strange mixture of nerves and calm I hadn't experienced in years. Liam held my hand tightly as we walked into the house, my heart pounding not from fear, but from anticipation. I had invited neighbors, friends, even a few of Madison's acquaintances under the guise of a family dinner. No one knew the truth, no one suspected what was about to happen. And that was exactly how I wanted it. Mom was seated at the kitchen table, arms folded, eyes sharp and demanding. Madison lounged nearby, scrolling on her phone, looking as confident and untouchable as ever. Dad was in his recliner, pretending to watch TV, but I could feel his eyes flickering toward me. I stepped inside, letting the front door click softly behind me. Liam's small hand in mine felt like an anchor, steadying me. "Where is it?" Mom snapped immediately, her hand outstretched before I even put my bag down. The panic she expected to see in my eyes wasn't there. I met her gaze calmly. "It's not yours," I said softly. The words were small, almost casual, but they struck harder than any yell or slap she had ever thrown at me. Madison laughed, her smirk sharp. "Oh God, she's actually trying this again," she said, still lounging like a queen surveying her kingdom. Mom's face twisted, a flash of anger crossing her features. "Grab it!" "Hand it over," she began, but I cut her off, raising a hand slightly, commanding attention. "No," I said. "Not this time. Not ever again." My voice was quiet, measured, but it carried across the room, drawing every eye. "This paycheck is mine. Every dollar I've earned, every ounce of my labor, belongs to me. And if you want it, you will explain to everyone here why it does." The room froze. Dad turned toward me slowly, his face darkening. Madison's smirk faltered as she realized the audience in the room wasn't on her side. My neighbors were seated in the living room, awkwardly shifting, whispering to one another. I could see judgment in their eyes, curiosity, and a flicker of understanding. They had heard the laughter, the shouting, the facade of a happy family, but they had never seen the truth. I reached into my bag and placed a neatly folded envelope on the table. "Go ahead," I said, my voice steady. "Take it. But tell everyone here why it's yours. Explain why your daughter works herself to the bone while you sit here and call her worthless." Madison froze, her phone halfway to her face as she tried to film me. "She's lying," she spat. "She's twisting everything." I pressed play on my phone. Madison's voice filled the room, recorded weeks ago, bragging to a friend. "I deserve everything. You're just practice. You exist so I can shine brighter." Her face went pale as the words echoed in the kitchen. The neighbors murmured, some shaking their heads, some exchanging glances of disbelief. Tyler, Madison's boyfriend, stood silently in the back, jaw tight, clearly disturbed. Mom stuttered, trying to reclaim control. It's not like that," she shouted, but the crowd had already heard the truth. Dad slammed his hand on the table, veins standing out in his neck, but even he looked uncertain. I leaned down, gathering Liam in my arms. His small fingers curled around mine, and I whispered softly, "It's okay, baby. We're free now." Then I did the final, deliberate move. I opened the envelope I had placed on the table. Instead of cash, scraps of paper spilled across the surface, old receipts, grocery slips, torn scraps. Worthless. That's what they had always given me, scraps of recognition, scraps of respect, scraps of love disguised as control. And now, that was all they would ever get from me. The room erupted in whispers, some neighbors shaking their heads in disgust, others standing in silent approval. Madison shouted, red-faced, but her voice was drowned out by the growing disapproval surrounding her. Tyler quietly turned and left without a word, leaving Madison staring after him, abandoned and humiliated. Dad slumped into his chair, his face red and trembling, no words coming. Mom buried her face in her hands, her power gone, replaced by shame and disbelief. I held Liam close and took a deep breath. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't known I could feel in this house: control. Not over them, but over me, over my life, over my son's future. I walked to the front door, the room buzzing with stunned silence behind me. Outside, the cool evening air hit my face, and I felt it like a promise, freedom, finally within reach. We stepped into the car, Liam nestled against my shoulder, his small smile pressed into me. Michael, my partner, waited quietly, ready to drive us away from the life we had endured for so long. And as I closed the door behind us, I realized that every insult, every bruise, every stolen paycheck had built me for this moment. We drove away, leaving the house, leaving the past, leaving the people who had tried to break me behind. Madison's perfect life, Mom's illusions, Dad's silent complicity, they were all powerless now, reduced to the empty scraps of authority they had always wielded over me. And for the first time, Liam's laughter wasn't fragile, it was full, it was safe, it was ours. I knew it wouldn't be easy. The memories of the pain would linger, and the fear might try to creep back in. But I also knew something else. I had claimed my dignity, my son's security, my right to exist as more than just a tool for someone else's vanity. I had turned the weapon they used against me into a symbol of truth, of justice, and of resilience. And in that moment, holding my son, watching the world through a windshield that no longer enclosed us in fear, I understood something profound. The real power isn't in the money they took, or the authority they imposed, it's in the courage to take yourself back. And that courage, once claimed, can never be stolen again. We drove into the night, the city lights stretching out ahead of us like a horizon of possibilities. Liam's small hand in mine, his soft breathing beside me, I finally allowed myself to imagine a life where we were free to be ourselves, free from fear, free from the weight of someone else's illusions. The past would always be there, a shadow in memory, but it no longer held us. I had taken back everything they valued most: control, pride, and the illusion of power. And I knew, deep in my bones, that we would never let them have it again. For the first time in a lifetime, I smiled, not because I had defeated them, but because I had finally freed myself, and in doing so, had given Liam a future worth fighting for.